Alright, today we are starting a new series on the channel called The Gear Behind John Mayer's Solos, and it's pretty much in the name. We're going to be going over a different solo in each episode of John's, take a listen to it in its entirety, and then discuss the gear that he is using. I thought this would be just a fun way to cover different solos that you guys might not have seen, or just talk about favorite ones of mine over the years. And to kind of start off this new series on the channel, we're going to do one solo every day for a week, and then probably do a video once a week after that. So today we're starting off with my favorite Helpless solo ever, and it's from the forum on September 14th, 2019. The more I've listened to the 2019 World Tour lately, just as I'm working or, whatever, having on in the background, different full concert clips from YouTube, 2019 World Tour might just be my favorite the more I've been listening to it lately. I love the trio era, as you guys know, but the 2019 World Tour, just that high gain tone that John had at this time is just incredible. And as we're gonna listen now to this solo from Helpless, you guys will see kind of what I'm talking about. This is the outro solo specifically, and the first time I heard this, it propelled Helpless really into being one of my favorite Mayer songs of all time. So that solo to me is just the quintessential 2019 World Tour tone. And the thing about the 2019 World Tour that I mentioned at the beginning of the video is the higher gain tones that John was kind of going for at this point in his career. And that's one thing I really love about the tour is that slight departure from the quintessential Mayer lead tone into making it just a little bit more high gain, which I really did like. So kind of the key components here into making the sound higher gain is actually in the pedal board. But first, let's talk about the guitar, and that was a Silver Sky Mock Sand. This was still the prototype kind of version of the satin Mock Sand finish that John was testing during the 2019 World Tour, but that's just what we were seeing there. Then for the amps, we have the last amp rig that actually featured the PRS JMod, John's signature amplifier with PRS. So the amp setup was the PRS JMod 100, a 2-rock John Mayer signature, and then Dumble Steel String Singer 002. Now, the interesting thing here, as you guys can see from this one shot of the amp rig, you have two PRS JMod cabinets, one underneath the JMod amp, and then one underneath the Steel String Singer, and then a 112 combo kind of cabinet there that's the exact same specs as a JMod cab, but just a 112 cab, not a 212. And that sits underneath the 2-rock. However, what we actually know was going on is the 2-rock was ran into the 212 cab that the JMod sat on top of, and the JMod amp actually was ran into the 112 cabinet. So kind of interesting, and obviously I believe this was just done for the aesthetic purposes of kind of the wider cabs were placed on, underneath the wider heads. So you have the wider J-Mod, the wider steel string singer underneath them, and then kind of the shorter, kind of not as wide 2-rock sits on top of the 112. But John was actually running that 2-rock through the 212 cabinet, which is really cool because the J-Mod's always been an interesting amp in John's arsenal, and the fact that in terms of stage volume even at least, you weren't hearing it as much because it was only being ran through one speaker, whereas the other amplifiers were ran through two. Now, when it comes to these cabinets as well, the tricky thing here is that they're closed back. So you really have no indication of what speakers John was actually using, and he could always be swapping them in and out. So it's very difficult to pinpoint exactly what was going on. Now, worth noting, John used another one of these 112 cabs, these PRS 112 cabs for the Sob Rock tour. And we know that at least one of them had an EVM12L in it. So was John running EVs at the time of the 2019 World Tour as well? Very difficult to say, but worth noting, G1265s as well are what kind of just come standard from Celestion in the PRS 212 cabs. So probably something along those lines John was using, but we don't really have anything concrete as to what he was actually running at this point. Now, in terms of the pedals for the outro solo of Helpless, this is where we're kind of getting into a lot of the theorizing as to what John was actually using behind the tone for this outro solo. Now, I've listened to a lot of different performances of Helpless from the North American leg of the 2019 World Tour, and to me there seems to be some almost discrepancy in the tones John was going for, specifically for the outro solo. Some to me are a little bit higher gain, a little bit more saturated, and then others are a little bit more of that standard tone. And kind of what I use as the benchmark for the standard tone of a Helpless outro solo be something from the first leg of the 2019 World Tour, because the first leg didn't really feature any of those higher gain overdrive pedals that John would later adopt for the second and third leg of the 2019 World Tour. So for the North American leg, which is obviously what this is here from the forum, the main pedals in question are the Klon Centaur, the Ibanez TS10, and then the Mesa Boogie Flux 5 in that order. Now, even if we take a quick listen to the standard solo, to me, it's not quite as higher gain and saturated as that outro solo was. So, would the main solo be Klon Centaur TS10, then the Mesa Boogie Flux 5 getting added in at for some capacity for the outro solo. If it's Klon Centaur into Flux 5, TS10 into Flux 5, it's hard to say, but that's where I've kind of always theorized this specific solo goes to, at least in terms of the tones. I will say is that if you listen to Belief, for example, even from the exact same show, that intro, is Mesa Boogie Flux 5. And what I've seen John do before, and I actually have footage of it from a different performance, is John has the Keeley Katana on, the TS10 on, and the Flux 5 on. And that's what's giving you those really ultra high gain, for Mayer at least, tones for Belief that we all know from the 2019 World Tour. So could the forum performance of Helpless have been TS10 into Flux 5, for example, but then Belief, you add in the katana to really saturate everything over the top? It's possible it also just is TS10 and Klon Centaur. It's possible, without having a better shot of John actually stepping, even just knowing, okay, he's stepping more to the left, he's stepping more to the right, so that would kind of indicate, okay, he's probably using those two pedals or those two pedals. It's very hard to say, but that's kind of the fun part about making this new series, is just even just theorizing and bringing up the discussions of what John might have been using, and trying to use at least my ear and what I'm leaning towards being, I think it's probably TS10 and Flux 5. That's what I would say it is. That's my opinion. You guys let me know in the comments down below if you think it's something different, if you think it's just kind of more akin to the standard Helpless tone John was doing. I don't know. But this solo is one I've always come back to because it's just so fantastic, and just in general, the 2019 World Tour with those higher gain tones, I think it's truly special. And this specific version of Helpless, this specific performance, is one that I've just always come back to thinking, there's just a little bit something special about it. So yeah, let me know in the comments down below what you think John might have been using in terms of the pedals here. Like I said, my kind of theory is the Flux 5 for some performances of Helpless during the 2019 World Tour was involved in some capacity during some solos. Kind of the main solos were TS10 Klon Centaur. I'm, we're pretty confident in saying that. Then those outro solos, maybe there's sometimes John was going a little bit higher gain or experimenting, because that's kind of what he was doing a lot for the 2019 World Tour, was experimenting with adding that third overdrive pedal into the mix. Even for the main solo of Slow Dancing, you'd see the Dumbleloid get added in during some shows in the European leg. So it's kind of something that's cool going on. It's something very unique and special for the 2019 World Tour, is that because John had more overdrive pedals on his pedal board than we know he was using a bit more consistently than, usual for John at least, it opens up to a lot of different stacking combinations in terms of his gain stacking, because Belief even could have been Klon Centaur, TS10, and Flux 5 or Dumbleloid for some performances. So you have all these different levels of gain stacking that John can use, which makes it really fun to just theorize and kind of try and guess as to what he was using. I owned a Mesa Boogie Flux 5 in the past. I sold it, and I really want to get another one again. But I found, through the 2-Rock, using a TS10 into the Flux 5 gets you really good Mare lead tones. It's not like a Mesa Boogie you might think of, where it's ultra high gain and just, almost like a metal sound. The Flux 5 is so flexible, it really complements a lead tone in terms of kind of a Mare context. So it's a really unique pedal that John was experimenting with, and it's absolutely brilliant. But yeah, for the 2018 World Tour, I've always kind of come back to a lot of these performances and been like, okay, what was just the typical TS10 and Klon Centaur performance kind of tone? And then where was he adding in or experimenting with different gain stacking combinations with those third overdrive pedals? The Dumbleloid is one where you can really hear it a lot more, I feel like, where the Flux 5 was almost set up like just a higher gain tube screamer in a way, in terms of the way John kind of seemed to be running it at least. Whereas the Dumbleloid really, you could tell when the Dumbleloid was on, it very much had its very unique tone whenever it was used. Flux 5 blends in just a little bit more. So hope you guys enjoyed the very kind of first episode of this new series. It's just fun to discuss and talk about these different solos that I really like and share them with you guys. Maybe you haven't seen them before. Or, as well, if there are solos you guys want me to discuss, as always, leave them in the comments down below, because I'd like to make this a series just to kind of talk about and just even listen to these different solos with you guys. So, until the next episode, you guys, thanks so much for watching. If you like this concept, by the way, let me know in the comments down below too, because I'll keep making it. Take care, guys. We'll see you on the next one.